Hey everybody, Nick here, and this morning we're going to talk about a little tiny Swiss Army knife by Victorinox, and this is referred to as the Midnite Manager. Oh, yeah. Anyways, this is loan from my buddy Jim. Thank you, Jim, for sending this along. And to give you an idea of size, here is your US quarter. Here is a through night AAA battery flashlight. Here is your Spyderco Delica. And here is your Leatherman Wave. So this is a very, very tiny little kind of affair. But it's interesting, and let's just jump on into the good, the bad, and the ugly, as always. Okay, before we get too into it, I want to just go over the tools real quick. Here you got a bottle opener, a wire stripper, so they claim, a little Phillips head drive. You've got a little tiny knife to give you a sense of scale. Here is your Victorinox Midnite Manager, and here is your ZT0450CF. As you can see, the blade on the Midnite Manager is a little bit smaller, and so that's something you got to keep in mind. You've got yourself a little tiny flashlight here. If you press the little shield, you get an LED light. If you slide this gray switch down, out pops a pen that you can actually write with, which is a beautiful thing. You've got yourself a little pair of scissors here. You've got yourself a... Come on now. I hate nail nicks. You got yourself a little chisel slash, well, not chisel, but little mini pry bar slash flathead screwdriver slash file, and you got yourself a keychain holder. The keychain, this thing, like I said, is aftermarket. But there are a bunch of nice things going on here. First off, on that little file, this little tool is surprisingly useful. As I said before, I carried a Leatherman Squirt P4 for many years, and this little guy is a very useful tool, and this seems to be in a similar pattern. It's really good for getting up under things. It's not just for turning flathead screws. So that's a nice thing. You've got the little Phillips tool, which I can see being helpful for a lot of really, really small kinds of disassembly screws. It's not going to be a good screwdriver for any real situation, and given Victorinox steel, I don't see it staying unstripped for too long, but it's something, right? It is nice that you've got an always with you little tiny light, and particularly one with a swappable battery here. You've got a very, very little easy mechanism where you push something through here, and the battery door, which I hope you can see here, pops out with the battery, and then you can put in a 389 button cell sort of battery, which is like $2 or $3, which is beautiful, because too many of these small lights, once the battery's dead, replace the light, and that sucks. With this, you always do have a pen, so you can, it's not God's gift to writing, but you can certainly write with it, and, I wouldn't want to do anything long form, but it's good enough for jotting down a phone number, and that's really what you need here. Another thing to point out is that this is... Pardon me. This is absolutely 100% unscary. I mean, there are certain people who are scared enough of the universe in general that, if they see something like this on your Leatherman Wave, or if they see Spyderco Delica, they're going to be like, oh my God, no, that's a weapon. At which point you take out your ZT0460 or 0452CF and just scare the bejesus out of them. Or don't. Actually, don't do that. But nonetheless, this is completely unscary to anybody. There is no situation you can take this out in and people will go anything other than, oh, that's adorable, because basically it is. And maybe the best thing this got going for it here is the fact that it's so light that you really don't care that you're carrying it. I mean, you can clip this on your keychain and basically forget about it. To give you a sense of weight, this weighs about the same as 6 US quarters, which is not much at all. In your grand scheme of things, even compared to your Leatherman Squirt, this is a little bit lighter still. So it's just incredibly portable. And so basically, this is a bunch of tiny tools that you've always got access to. And one last thing, this is called the Victorinox Midnite Manager, and I just love that, because Midnite Manager makes it sound like you run a strip club or something. And they even include a stripper. But anyways, I mean, what do you do, Nick? I'm a Midnite Manager. I like that. So... it made me smile every time I thought about the name. But I'm really, really immature. So, what do you want? So those are your good things. It's got a couple of really useful little tools, like that flathead thing. It's got a tiny little always with your light and a tiny little always with your pen. It's completely unscary, and, it's light enough that you just don't care that you're carrying it, which is a great choice for a keychain or something like that. So there's your good. Let's jump on into the bad. A couple of bad things, and they're all basically the same thing, which is that each of these tools is not quite enough tool for actual, well, for a lot of uses. Take, for instance, the light. Yeah, the light turns on and it's kind of bright enough. This is the kind of light that you could use if you're, behind the desk looking at the back of a computer trying to read the serial number. That's the kind of light this is. I actually did darken my place pretty significantly and let my eyes adjust and then navigate a room using this, and it wasn't ideal at all. And this is not a light that's really suitable for outdoors kind of thing. This is very close field, maybe 6 or 7 inches away, maybe a foot if you want to push it, sort of illumination, rather than area lighting. That should be pretty obvious, but this is a very, very limited light. So that's something to keep in mind. Your knife is absolutely just kind of bad. Partly because Victorinox tends to run their steel very soft, so this will go dull very quickly, and it didn't come very sharp to start with. Another issue is that it's just so damn thin that makes it a decent slicer, but it also makes it very weak. You can wobble this knife blade back and forth in a way that I'm not really happy with. And then also, as you're cutting into things, it's very easy to slide down onto this choil, which is no longer sharpened at all. And there's no real good way this doesn't lock open, obviously, and this feels really awkward. So, is it going to open an envelope? Yeah, but so will my pinky finger jammed in there. And honestly, I'm of the mind that this shouldn't have a knife at all, because it's not enough knife to be a useful knife, but it is enough knife to make the TSA take this away from you, if you're living in the States and dealing with that whole scene. So I really, really wish that they had made this with just scissors and put in some other useful tool over here instead of this knife. But that's just my 2 cents, I suppose. The scissors are entertainingly small, and they're not going to be great for large kinds of cutting, but they are, in fact, cuttable. You can make cuts with them. So, that's something. Don't go into this thinking, oh, I'll always have scissors. Well, kind of, but only for really small snips, like a hangnail or something like that. And then one other thing to keep in mind is that you really do need to put this on a quick release, if nothing else, because try imagining writing with your entire keychain hanging off the back of this. That would be really deeply unpleasant. And already, as I'm trying to write here, it's completely, this is flopping all over the place. So want to put this on a quick release if you're planning to use that pen at all. Then finally, the other bad thing is that this is $36, and that's actually, a little on the pricey side, especially relative to some of your other multi-tools, which are in that same kind of pricing category. So, this isn't exactly cheap enough that you can just throw it and, do it as a throwaway. This is, a little bit of an investment, and I'm not 100% sure it's merited. So there's your bad. A lot of the tools basically are just not good enough for a lot of uses. This is just on the very lowest end of functionality. So there you go. Let's go into the ugly. The ugly here is that I feel like I'm just going to break this thing. And I mean that in a variety of ways. This is your most sturdy tool because the steel is nice and thick. But even still, at the juncture with the tool itself, if I put any lateral force on this, it starts shaking around in a way I'm not entirely comfortable with. The knife is just really flimsy. This bends back and forth like you wouldn't believe, and just doesn't make me feel confident at all in that as a tool. And similarly, if you want to use your little file thing for any kind of a scraping, prying thing, I really do worry that it's going to pop right off. And I don't have that same impression of some of your other smaller multi-tools. One other final thing to keep in mind, if you can get past the keychain, is that because on this side you got a pen and on this side you've got a flashlight, the handles on both sides are actually kind of hollow, which leaves them with a fair amount of flex. If you're used to a more conventional Swiss Army knife where you've got a solid plastic chunk here, or better still, the aluminum ones, it feels a lot more solid. This kind of bows in a little bit in a way that doesn't make me feel entirely happy about it. So I'm not necessarily that confident in the long-term survivability of this little device. But, that's just me. And of course, it'll scratch up and whatnot. So what's the final verdict here? Basically, your keychain tools like this, or like your Squirt P4, or like your Gerber Dime, are meant to be your first line of utility. And every time you carry a tool of some kind, you always have to balance portability and utility. You could always carry a Leatherman Wave, which is a really, really great multi-tool. It has so many utilities to it. It's got so many tools, and it's beefy enough, it survives. But the thing is, it's a royal pain in the neck to carry because it's big and it's heavy. So here's all of your function, and all of your function, but a whole lot of weight and stuff. So it's not very portable. Your Leatherman Squirt has some pretty serious utility. It's not, perfect, and it's not the Leatherman Wave, but it is pretty good. It's pretty portable. It's like 2 ounces and not that big. Your Victorinox over here does very, very little work. I mean, functionally speaking, it does a couple of things well, and it's got, some functions there. But it's so incredibly portable and easy to carry. It just basically disappears. So you got to ask yourself, how much are you actually going to be using this tool, and what functions are you going to be using? If portability and lightweight is really super important to you, this may be a decent way to go, and you get some nice features, which is good. But for me, at least, I tend to favor function, and I already, on any given day, am carrying usually a pen and some kind of a light on me. And so I really don't see the need for the Midnite Manager specialty functions, and you get much better functionality, to my mind, out of your Leatherman Squirt, which I've got a review up of already. So for me, the Midnite Manager just doesn't make any sense. It's something that's there's too little function and too little durability for what extra I would get on top of what I'm already carrying, and I'd go here. But for you, you might want to go this way if you're going really lightweight or something like that. I don't want to go ahead and call this one a gem. I don't think so, and I wish it was just built a little bit more strongly. But, hey, everything's got its place, and maybe this is a good tool for you. There you go. So that's where I stand on it. I hope this has been helpful, and have yourselves a wonderful rest of your day.